Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Chancellor.
Roberta.
Yeah.
Quite a late night, I imagine.
Oh, sleep is a weakness here.
Chancellor,
Dwight.
I'd like to introduce to you Professor Pons, protege of Professor Blanc and our leading expert on cold fusion.
Professor, a pleasure. I only wish it were under different circumstances.
Likewise, sir.
Councillor.
Okay. Let's have it.
6 months ago, one of our satellites took a series of photographs over China. Now, these photographs became of particular interest due to the two sites' unique location, with one of them being along the Himalayan mountains and the second close by in the Tibetan plateau. As per protocol, we maintained satellite reconnaissance, and approximately 2 months ago became aware that the site in the Himalayas was in fact a mining facility, with the other being a heavily fortified military base. Now, over the past 2 months, we've managed to get one deep cover operative into the facility's ranks. The operative has been undercover now for the past 2 weeks, and the reports are alarming. What they're working on, intel suggests, is a generator for the development of a new source of energy. We understand the P.S.R. are working from the late Professor Blanc's theory on the development of cold fusion. And what they're mining in the Himalayas is believed to be the missing link.
What exactly are we looking at here?
Well, sir, I believe Professor Pons can answer that better than I. Professor?
Professor Blanc's theory for cold fusion was to be the answer to the oil crisis. At present, our only alternative source of energy is nuclear, and with that come all the hazards. For example, Chernobyl in 1986, Fukushima in 2011, Saint Laurent in 2028, and of course Sellafield only last year. And of course there's the problem of what to do with the radioactive waste. Cold fusion is the exact opposite. It's clean, it's unlimited, and there are no drawbacks. Professor Blanc was only derailed because he lacked what he referred to as a source of unobtainium. That was to be the key. Right, sorry. Chancellor, sir, if the P.S.R. have managed to generate cold fusion, then the balance of power will tip decisively in their favour.
Sir, at present we have the greater nuclear deterrent, both numerically and in efficiency. It is our deterrent that maintains world peace. But our early estimates predict the P.S.R's military armament exceeding ours in less than a year. After that, we simply won't be able to keep up. The Joint Chiefs' consensus is that this signals a major shift in the P.S.R's thinking to a first strike policy.
Okay, well, I want first reactions here. Assuming Premier Chan has not taken leave of his senses and decided to start World War III. What are we looking at?
Councillor, I believe my team is in agreement. If we permit the introduction of the first strike policy to the P.S.R, the consequences will be too terrible to contemplate. It seems to me diplomatic measures need to be taken, or our only other option, we hit them.
Robert,
We have developed a military scenario. But before I ask General Foley to take us through the details, I feel I must stress the importance of time, or lack of. It is not a luxury afforded to us. General, if you please.
Chancellor, our proposed plan of action is to target all the P.S.R's military forces, including the facility and mining complex on the Tibetan Plateau. Now, our first wave of attack will be via the Sierra-class Falcon stealth bombers. There will be some bases unaccounted for. We estimate a strike rate of 90%. The 10% unaccounted for will retaliate, thus revealing their locations. Our second wave of attack will be against the remaining military forces.
Won't that destroy the unobtainium?
Mais oui, malheureusement. But we have to take the approach that it is better destroyed than in the hands of our enemies.
Sir, we have 200 bombers currently being prepped and armed with 18 15-megaton warheads. We will attack on both the western and eastern fronts, thus delivering a quick and decisive blow.
So how long until this generator is operational?
Well, we're not 100% sure on that. Our operative has so far been unable to gain access to the lab.
So we have no documentation of their experiment.
Mais non, but we have documented that experiments have taken place.
Just not the results. I'm sorry. The intel being presented here appears to be more speculative than accurate.
Ma'am, we're aware of how the intel looks, but the threat is just too great to ignore.
I'm not saying that we should ignore it, but you want to start World War III without all the facts. So I'm forced to ask, how accurate is our intel? We know that they're working from Professor Blanc's theory, and it's highly likely that they're mining for this unobtainium. Yes. Okay, we have the evidence to support those. But what about the rest? How far along the production line are they with this? Does it even work?
She is right. We need to be 100% in this before we take any action, let alone military action that will instigate a nuclear exchange.
And what would be your recommended course of action?
We need confirmation as to what stage of the development the P.S.R. are at with this.
And what if you're wrong, and you give them the initiative to complete the project? Or worse, it is already complete.
You've seen for yourself how difficult it is to gather information on this.
What if she's right and we start a nuclear war that will cost millions, if not billions, of casualties? Not just on their side, but ours as well.
I don't mean to interrupt, but you seem to be missing a key point here. You're fixated on the threat that the P.S.R. will have first strike capability. But what you're missing is that with cold fusion energy powering them, their industry and economy would boom. Forget about their military. They would eclipse us in everything.
What scale of damage are we talking about, Professor?
Damage. Total, sir. They would have no need to launch. They would have economic, agricultural and commercial might. They could just wait it out till we're on our knees and then assimilate our culture into their own.
Jesus.
All the more reason why we need to act immediately. Chancellor.
I think there are diplomatic approaches we should consider.
See, I agree.
Sir, we have high confidence in the airstrikes. But the problem we face is that alone is only a temporary solution. As far as we know, the P.S.R. have the only source of unobtainium, and there's nothing to stop them rebuilding, rearming, and going again. The chiefs and I believe that we should follow up our initial strikes with boots on the ground.
An invasion.
Their ground forces will be depleted and uncoordinated from the initial strikes. Resistance will be minimal, most likely local militia.
Not to mention, it allows us to move in and begin our own mining for the unobtainium.
Alan, what do you think?
General, you've mentioned a retaliatory strike, albeit from an estimated 10% of their remaining unknown bases. Even at 10%, that number's going to be in the hundreds, and most, if not all, will be equipped to launch nuclear missiles. Now, based on the CIS reports, that retaliatory strike could potentially wipe out Europe, Alaska, Hawaii, and even a lot of our satellite nations. Sir, if we go to war, regardless of us striking first, we'll be sacrificing a lot of territory.
And a lot of lives. Until we have sufficient intelligence, diplomacy is our only option. Need I remind you all that the policy of this administration is a no first strike?
General, do you truly believe this to be our best course of action?
Sir, I believe this to be our only course of action. Now, you heard what the professor said. Our very way of life is under threat. And we are justified in defending that way of life. Now, you two want diplomacy. Well, believe me, if you've got something, I'm all ears.
Alan, you've got to give me something. Something I can work with.
We have to take the risk. We need more intel. We need confirmation that the generator works. Then we can discuss our next steps.
There is a third option. Either course carries massive risk. So perhaps what we need is a route of appeasement. A third option would be to strike a deal. We exchange a healthy supply of our oil reserves for the duration of the project, and in return, we collaborate on the development and share the rewards.
That's very admirable, Professor. But I'm sorry. I just don't see how that's possible. Dwight, how does this all play out?
Your first step, sir, will be to order the bombing runs. We will take out the majority of their military bases, severely depleting their retaliatory options. When they launch the counter-strikes, our satellites will triangulate the location of the bases, and we will follow up with our second assault, launching our missiles immediately. Your next step will be to demand the unconditional surrender of the P.S.R. They will refuse, and we will follow with our invasion plans. They will resist, but will be quickly overrun.
Monsieur, I must stress that intelligence works both ways. We must assume that the P.S.R. know that this meeting is taking place. How long before they consider that we are looking at a first strike?
Sure. We've already begun mobilization under cover of a prearranged exercise. But we're looking at another 2 weeks until we're ready. That is, if you give the order now. Any further delay and we risk losing the strategic advantage. Or worse, we've allocated the P.S.R. enough time to mobilize their forces and strike first.
I cannot believe we're even considering initiating the Third World War without all the facts.
Deputy Chancellor, please do not think that the Joint Chiefs and I came to this decision lightly.
Lightly.
But the
Lightly.
options...
You're going against everything this administration, everything the W.A.D. stands for. Not to
The
mention risking the lives
responsibility
of over
of
9
this
billion
government is to
people.
ensure the stability and
Not
security
by
of the
risking the
Western Alliance of
security and
democracy.
safety of its people.
Okay! Okay! Let's settle down. So, strikes or intel?
We knew the world would not be the same. People laughed. People cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the W.A.D. Vishnu was trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty. And to impress him, takes on his multi-armed form and says,
Order the strikes.
now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. I suppose we all thought that.